Oh, good morning, or at least it's morning here when I'm filming this. Welcome to another episode of Monkey RC on the Bench. Today I'm going to dive into something that I'll give an explanation of what they do and how we use them in our RC crawlers, everything from 10th scale all the way down to our fun minis. And what we're talking about is limit straps. I don't know if if you already know what these are, then go ahead and fast forward to the video till where I teach you how to make some. If you don't know what limit straps are, I'll give you a brief explanation of what they are and what they do. So, what happens is every time we're crawling out in the yard, we're doing more less steep inclines and stuff like that, the car's suspension is working, and if you've got it set up right, it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is articulating and I don't know if you can hear my kids screaming at each other in the background. Sorry about that. I told them to be quiet while I'm making this, but they're kids, so what can you do? So forgive me if you hear them in the background. But anyway, so yeah, articulation, your suspension. There's many different ways to set up your suspension. I won't go into too many details now. I'll make another video about suspension and how to set it up. But for right now, I'm going to just talk strictly about when your suspension needs limit straps and what they can do for you. Now, let me see if I can find a car and kind of explain the difference between the two. So, right here, we have my Muse Ripper build. I call him the ugly Yoda, but because I had a good buddy of mine from the Microcrawler Club, Sam. He printed me off 3D printed off a Toyota body, and I couldn't. As I was trying to see if I could maybe push it onto this, it actually broke the body. So I ended up just clean breaking it in sections and mounting it to this. So hence kind of the ugly Yoda, or Fury. So, I'll show you on Fury what I'm talking about. So, when you're going through sections and ruts, the suspension is doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is articulating. Alright? And that's what we aim for, is a car that can articulate and still maintain its contact with the ground. Well, what happens, and if you're just new to this, maybe you haven't noticed it enough, but if you've been running these enough, you've noticed a situation where your car, once it starts going from this to this, what will happen is the torque from your motor, which is turning that drive shaft into there, will actually start unloading. You see all this right here? Start unloading as it's going up. So if you're trying to scale a really steep rock, what can happen is you come up the rock, and right as it starts unloading, guess what happens? The weight shifts and down you go. Try it again, try it again, try it again. Still you can't get over it. Now maybe at this point you've given up on that rock, or you have a buddy who is either utilizing limit straps or is using a droop or sag setup in his suspension, which is pretty much just limiting the suspension travel, which is not allowing that shock to fully go through the whole extension and allowing that weight to go back, and he goes over the rock. Frustrating, right? Especially if you spend a lot of money on your cars and parts and everything, and you're just like, why isn't this going over this? It should be awesome. But I'm going to teach you something right here. I've gone through a couple different versions of my first attempt at limiting straps, because what I saw and learned from some of these more experienced guys is what they were doing. They were putting rubber bands around their shocks. And what that was, and I asked, I'm like, what is that? And before I could even figure it out, a good buddy of mine, Van, threw a rubber band around some of my shocks, and he's like, try that, see what happens. Sure enough, a climb that I had tried 10 times and couldn't make it, all of a sudden I made it. And I'm just like, wow. And then they broke it down like what was going on. That weight shift is what was killing me. This right here, right? When it got to that critical point, and back she went. So for this one, for an early attempt, what I actually did was I cut a like a face mask, like an N95 mask, and I'll try to show you right here. And I mounted I ripped the elastic off of it, and I mounted it to my bumper and to the extra slot on my servo horn. Okay. Now, why I did that and why I went for mounting it in the center is it still allowed full articulation, but it limited the amount of droop, and for this Mini, it was sufficient enough to keep it from doing that. And you'll see right here, normally if this wasn't on there, my suspension would unload, but if you see, it holds it down. And that's what you want. That's the whole point of all of this, is to help you scale those steeper climbs without getting that weight unload and tip over. Okay. Now I've gone through a couple different versions, and I have ran rubber bands in different points through different spots, if you will. I do like it over the shock, around the shock body. But I didn't like the rubber band look, personally, for me. It just didn't look good to me. It didn't look clean. But, so, diving online, I found a couple companies that make limit straps specifically for our cars. And then I got hung up on the, well, right as I was about to add to my cart, say like, yeah, I want to try those. Something struck me. They're $30 for a set of two of them. And I just couldn't believe it. I was just like, that is ridiculous. And for us RC guys, every bit, every dollar counts. Every dollar counts. So, went back to rubber bands, kind of played with a few more N95 mask elastics and stuff like that. But I got my hands on some actually factory-made limit straps. And I was looking at them, I'm like, what makes this $30? What made this $30? And all I saw was pretty much the same thing we were already doing. It's an elastic with two mounting points at the top to bolt on to the shock bolt, unscrew it, mount it back in, and then down on the axle, same thing, where the shock goes in. But I also realized that every time you want to use them or take them off or anything like that, change something up, you've got to undo those bolts completely and pull them out to get that limit strap off. So not only have you spent a lot of money to get this thing, but now you've created a lot of work to remove or unremove. So you may be asking, like, well, why would you want to remove them? Well, if you're going trail riding with the same truck you were just comping with this last week, maybe you want a little bit more quicker reaction from the shocks and suspension without having an elastic in there limiting the front. Because really what that does is that helps you on the steep climbs. That keeps you planted. You go trailing the next week, you're not planning to do anything crazy and steep, and you want to either film or see that suspension do its work fully, maybe you want them off. Well, now, bolt, re-putting the shock back into the slot, rethreading everything. The link's probably in the same bolt, so now you got a shock and a link. You know, it's kind of a pain. So the rubber band theory comes back into, well, I can just take them off and put them back on, and that's great. Well, I had an idea, or at least forming an idea of like, what could I make better material than rubber bands that could hold up just like the $30 ones you can buy, but not cost $30. So I spent a few different trips going to different fabric stores and not hobby stores, but like, like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, all the, sewing and stuff like that. And I think I came up with a pretty good solution for my problem, and something that you can do yourself, make a bunch for very little to no money in the long run of each individual set. So I'm going to turn the camera around, and I'm going to show you the ones I made for my IR40 build. And I'm going to show you how I've made them with what materials. And I hope that what I'm hoping for is it looks better. It accomplishes the purposes I want, which is to be easy on and off. It doesn't cost really anything, but performs just as good as some of the more expensive things that other companies offer. Okay? So I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to flip the camera and show you on the bench what I'm talking about. All right? Okay, so here we are on the bench. Okay? Here we got my super sweet IR40 build. I've got a video on it if you want to go back and see what I've put into this and all the details about it. I won't go into it right now. But except for mentioning that sweet laser cut wood bed I put in. Had to mention that. It's got my name on it. So, flip this open. And what you have here is right up front here. I don't know if you can see it, which is the point. But here is my limit strap sitting right there on that shock. And what that is doing right here is it's wrapped around the brass fitting down here at the lower point, and it's looped over, I should say, over the upper shock bolt. And what this does is, take this off. All this is some stretch material crimped with 2 loops that allow my shocks to stretch, but also limit that shock from unloading. And as you just seen, super easy to put on and off. I can put these in my bag, my battery bag, if I get to the trail and forgot I left them on and notice, so I can stick them in my pocket, or I can throw them in the truck before I take off. Or if they fall off on the trail, this cost me probably less than a nickel to make. So pretty sweet. Now, I already took this one off, so I'll take the other one off as well. As you can see, just another one. And explain maybe a little more what's happening. Okay, so when we're on the trail, we want this to have all this nice range. All this nice, sweet range. But again, as we're going up, I don't know, let me see if I don't have the thing latched on so you can see, but as we're going up, guess what happens? Look at all that travel. And that right there, that travel, that swing, that weight unload, shock unload, throws it back. Tip, scratch, tumble, all the bad stuff. So, we got I was greasing some driveline, so I have a little bit of grease on my hand earlier. So I'm going to kind of show you exactly what I bought and how I do it. So, for the minis, I found this Stretch Magic. It's for jewelry, if you're making bracelets and stuff like that. It's 1 mil in diameter, okay? And jewelry cord, I guess is what they call it. Strong and stretchy, resistant and flexible. But there is almost 16 and a half feet of this stuff. And as you can tell from this, there's probably only 2 inches roughly for this. So a total of 4 inches for the set. So you can imagine how many you can make with this. And this was only $5. So whatever that breaks down to each one. Now, the other thing I bought, and I don't have the package for it, you have to go to the necklace aisle, which is where I found this. And what they have is they're called barrel crimps. Let me see if I can get one out here. I'll grab a big one. And what this is all it is just a little tube. It's hard to see. Little steel tube that you can thread the material through. Take some pliers, and when you make the loop you want, then you come through and crimp it. All right? Keeping the loops intact. And I don't know, my camera might, I don't know if you can see that. Keeping it from slipping out. So, that is for the minis I'm trying. Now for the big boys, like the tent scale, what I did is I wanted something a little more heavy duty because the factory limit straps I was seeing being put out there had this flat elastic material. All right? And I was like, yeah, I like that. That looks good. That looks clean. That looks awesome. So, right here, again, at the craft store, I think I got all this at Michael's, but back in the yarn and sewing stuff, I was just kind of looking around for some kind of stretchy material. I found this, and it's 5 yards, and this was again only about $3, $2.50, something like that. And wow, it's exactly the same, almost exactly the same material that they use. It's got stretch that you want, but it also stops where you want. So same thing, barrel clamp it, and I've got a couple sets I've already made and put on some of the other rigs. I'll show you one right now. Let me get this guy out of the way so we can make some room. And let me grab this. This, if you didn't know, is Todd. I name all my rigs, but so this one, I don't know if you can see this, has got this fabric style. It was super hard for me to get it looped over this nut, this bolt back here, so and I wanted it to be able to be pretty quickly removed, but it is able to hook down here on this pretty easy. And so I just backed this screw out just a little bit, hooked it on, slightly tightened it down, and voila. All right. And what this does is it does the exact same thing. I still have all the flex, all the travel from the shock I want. But let me adjust this camera right here. Let me go up right here. But as I'm climbing, you can see that this keeps it from doing, I have to almost force it to unload. You see that? It even pulls it back in. So, pretty much voila for, again, even with these fabric ones, for 10 cents, I've surpassed the $30 expense of some factory-made limit straps. So, I'll set this down so we can kind of get to, I'll readjust the camera. I'm going to try to make a quick version of this, and we'll make a small one. So, what I'll do is I'll just take a little bit of cord. Like I said, you don't need much, 2-3 inches. Just like that. All right. I rated my wife's sewing needle. I asked her, of course, but I rated her sewing needle collection for one that she didn't really use, that was slightly bigger, for a needle that I could thread this material and the threaded material through and pull through this barrel, because I was struggling to get it through the crimp at first. I was like, there's got to be a better way. So this is working really good. But the next problem I ran into was I thread it through the clamp, and now how the hell do I get my needle off? Okay, that's not going to work. So I don't know if I can show you, if you can see I took my Dremel and I just slightly cut and ground off a little slot right there. Okay, so that when it's through the barrel clamp, I can remove the needle. So I'll show you exactly how that works on this material. I hook it through. See that? So that's holding that. I will come through here. I think it was this one. Let's see here. Yep. Thread that guy on there. And put my finger right there in my little notch. Put my other finger right through there. And successfully, hopefully, show you that. And as you can see, here's what we got. A nice little loop, which can be another great thing about doing this yourself is maybe the length of the factory ones they're selling don't work on your rig. Maybe you got a different style suspension. Maybe these shocks on this one, which is a TRX4M build, which maybe they market it for, you've changed the suspension, you've changed the shocks. They're longer, they're shorter, they're whatever you want. Now this opens up you being able to make your own at your own length. Okay? So what I'll do, I'm just going to make a quick example of this, but set that thing down. They're so tiny, they're kind of hard to keep track of, but okay. Oh, Mama Bear's on the scene upstairs, correcting whatever argument's going up there. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this camera steady. Get this threaded. There we go. Okay. So, same thing. Thread the barrel clamp on through here. And like I said, I take this little notch, I put my thumbnail in there. Grab that barrel. Pull it through. Now I can pop it off the needle because of our sweet new notch. And so at this point right here, you could say like, oh man, I made it too long. Well, all you gotta do is just adjust it. Pull some slack through there, however much you need, to your desired length. And then you take the other end that came through, pull that through, and now we got a smaller one. And when we're done, all we gotta do is, I'll show you, just take this, clamp it. I won't do it right now because I think this next set I'm making is going to be for my Evo Pro. So I got to pull it down and kind of figure out how long I want it. What you don't want is you don't want to make it so short that your shock's not able to move at all. You still want it to be able to move. I would say more or less you want the elasticity of this to start activating about half the stroke of your shock, to where it's now starting to meet some resistance, because once you're going up that steep climb, it will not allow it to go past that point. You can adjust it down. I mean, you could sit there and find your sweet spot. Maybe you want it really slammed down, and that's wherever you're riding and trailing or climbing. That's the golden ratio right there. Maybe you want it to be a little bit more. You feel like you don't need that much compression resistance. But doing it yourself allows you to set all that up to your specific rig and how you want it to be. So this fabric material is no different. It was a little tougher to thread on my little needle notch because it is almost like a nylon hair tie type fabric, so it did catch a little, but it was not that hard to do. And again, I've put a set on my full-size Capra, I've put a set on my UTB 18 so far, and I've barely even used the beginning 2 reels of this little guy to make that. So if you were to factor that up, that's $30 for the Capra, that's $30 for the UTB 18, that's $30 for this little guy. Probably a little cheaper though, because it's smaller, but still, you know, let's say 20 bucks, so 3, 6, you know, 70, that's almost $100, $80 to $100, especially once I'm done with this next set. $100 in limiting straps that I've made all of them for a combined total of maybe a quarter to 50 cents. All right, and I've got all these different sizes in the pack I got. I made sure it had all these different sizes for different materials. Maybe I find a better material down the road than this stretch cord, but I still have all these. So yeah, as I make some more videos down the road, you'll probably, if you look closely, you'll probably start seeing these on my rigs. I'll probably even make a few for my friends and their rigs, because I enjoy helping others just as much as the whole hobby itself. And I hope that this helps you. And if you do have any other suggestions, maybe you guys know some other materials you've used, I'm more than interested, because our community benefits from shared knowledge and tips and techniques of how we've gotten our rigs to perform better, run better, comp better, and be more enjoyable out on the trail and on the hills. So I really hope that if this helped you, share it. Like and subscribe. Share to some of your friends who've maybe struggled with this, or maybe you haven't had a full understanding of the weight unload and why your rig wasn't able to finish that scale. And yeah, I would be very interested to hear about it, because this has made a huge difference. And the only reason why I even started getting into this and utilizing these kinds of things, from rubber bands to hair ties to all the different things we've done, is because somebody with more knowledge and had been in this longer and understood it better helped me out. So I hope to pass on that knowledge to you. I hope this helps you out. And yeah, I hope you have a more enjoyable time the next time you're taking your rigs out after doing this. I will say all this stuff I did get is from Michael's, but I'm sure any mini stores, big box stores, would have all the materials you need to accomplish this. Okay? That's all today for On the Bench, and I hope you guys have a killer day, an awesome next run, and yeah, have a good one.